Good morning. I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please, Kelly.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Present.
Mr. Dennell? Present. Mr. Hess? Present. Ms. Polk?
Present.
Ms. Weber? Present. Ms. Parker? Mr. Swanson? Mr. Featherling? Present. Mr. Miller? Mr. Long? Present. Mr. Hunter? Present. Ms. Foster? Ms. Armour Earps? Present. Mr. Wheeler? Mr. Alexander Hildebrand? Present. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Next up is public comment. I have no slips of public comment. Is there any public comment in the back? Seeing none. Next is approval of minutes from April 24th, 2024. Can I have a motion to approve? Mr. Hess, second by Mr. Hunter. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is the FY23 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, SKDO. We have Carmen with us with Steve this morning. Good morning to you both.
I'd like to introduce Carmen Heisinger from SKDO. She's here to do the required communications back to the board from our FY23 audit.
Good morning. I handed out copies of just my presentation, so if you didn't get a copy, you can raise your hand and Jackie in the back can get you one if you would like one. I'm just going to hit the highlights of the audit, and there's not too many, terribly exciting things happening, which is always good. We kind of like it when it's boring as far as the audit goes. So first off, our mission as an auditor is to give an opinion on your financial statements to state whether we believe they are materially correct. And we did have an unmodified opinion on that, so we issued, I guess, a clean opinion. We also do a report on internal controls over financial reporting and compliance and other matters, and we did not note any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control. We are still finalizing our single audit report, which is our compliance audit over your grants. Those auditors' opinions are on pages 5 through 9 of the packet that I did give you. So if you want to read through those, that's where those are. We are also required to provide some other communications to you. One is our communications with governance, which starts on page 10. And then we also had some management recommendations for best practices that are also in your packet on page 13. The audit report isn't final. We're waiting on one last communication, and then we can finalize it, get all the submissions done. But when you get the auditor's report, because all of you will have a copy available to you, it's going to be probably 180 pages. But out of that 180 pages, I would encourage you to read the letter of transmittal from the Finance Department and the management's discussion and analysis prepared by the Finance Department. That's not in your packet here, but it is going to be in the final audit report. That just gives you a really good overview of the financial report, how it's laid out, and then a highlight of the significant changes from the prior year. As far as high-level summarized information and financial highlights, if you go to page 14 in your packet, you'll see a statement of net position, and that is basically a high-level summary of the governmental activities and the business type activities of the county. So the governmental activities include the general fund, all the special funds, your debt service funds, and then the business type activities consists of ETSB or 911 and animal control. So your total net position at the end of the year, which is what's left after assets less liabilities, is $80.9 million. That's an increase of $13 million over the prior year. That does include capital assets. In governmental activities, there's a net position of $69.1 million, and of that, there's a net investment in capital assets of 51.1 million, and then there's a restricted net position of 36.1 million. So that is saying that out of those amounts, they're not available for general operations. They're in your special revenue funds. They've been levied, or they're fees and charges that you can't just spend on anything. It's limited as to what you can spend it on. And so after those two items, you are left with an unrestricted net position, which is in a deficit position of 18.1 million. That's not uncommon for governments. And especially this year, there was a huge swing in the pension expense based on the actuarial reports, which definitely had a big effect on these first two statements that I'm going through. And that number is very volatile. There's, in the final report, you're gonna see 10-year schedules, and you can see how the pension number goes up and goes down by millions. And that's what you're seeing then in the volatility and the differences from year to year here. I was going to go through it and highlight the significant liabilities of the county, and I just lifted the chart right from the footnotes on page 2 of your packet. So there was a net increase of $22.1 million in long-term liabilities. Essentially, that is due to that pension liability increasing that I just mentioned. The 2009 bonds were paid off during the year, and there was an additional note payable in the ETSB fund. Debt and finance purchases consist of 5.2 million. The pension liability is 28.1 million. That is over a $40 million swing from the prior year. It was actually a net pension asset in the prior year of 14.9 million, and it swung to a pension liability of the 28 million. You also have other post-employment benefit liabilities of 5.2 million, and then compensated absences, which is estimated sick pay that will be paid out when people eventually retire. The next statement, high-level summary, is called the Statement of Activities, and that's on page 15 of your packet. It's organized a little differently than a traditional income statement. It's in a net expense format. So on the left-hand side, you're going to see by function what the total expenses are of the government, and then you'll see the offset, the revenues that offset those expenses that are like charges for services, your grants, and then it comes down to a net expense number that needs to be funded by taxes and other general revenues. So total expenses were 105 million of the county, and that was offset by enough charges for services and grants to bring that number down to 66.5 million. And then that was offset by $54 million of general revenues. So property taxes, sales taxes, income taxes, your ARPA grants, and then interest and a few other miscellaneous items. So that netted down to a change in net position of your governmental activities of negative 12.5 million, and then in the business type activities, just under 600,000 deficit spending. So your net ending position, like we mentioned before, total government-wide is almost 81 million. Most of these expenses, except for that pension expense in there, is consistent with prior years. Public safety is the largest function of the county, and then that's followed by court services, transportation, and then general government. Following that are your fund financial statements. So starting on page 17 or 16 of your packet, this is probably more what you're used to seeing being reported monthly. You're seeing your general fund and your pension fund and some of those other individual funds. You're probably seeing budget to actual reports or cash balances, things like that. So on the financial statements, it breaks it down into the major funds and then the non-major funds. And so the major funds of the county are the general fund, which also includes the tort fund, and then in addition, our pension, highway, county bridge, and the ARPA funds. The combined general fund ended with a positive fund balance of 15.1 million, and that's now the 5th year in a row that the general fund balance has been positive. It was actually a negative fund balance from 2013 through 2018. So the county has been consistently building that back up into a positive, strong position. So revenues, excluding other financing sources such as debt proceeds and transfers and sales of capital assets, actually increased by $4.5 million over the prior year. And expenditures increased by $5.3 million. Part of the increase was due to the increase in inmate revenues and then the related expenditures for those inmates. There were also increases in taxes and intergovernmental revenues. And then some of that increase in expenses included paying off those 2009 bonds. And then various capital projects that you were implementing during fiscal year 23, new grants. A lot of that was still ARPA spending as well. Highlights on the ETSB, which is a major fund for the business type activities, is that cash increased by $1.8 million, but the net position actually decreased by $0.5 million. They were doing several upgrades to their communications network. They upgraded first responder radios throughout the county, and they're actually paying for that over the next 5 to 7 years, I think. So that is the reason for the increase in the debt that we highlighted earlier. After the enterprise funds, we have fiduciary funds, and these are funds that are more in a custodial capacity for the county. Those funds are not available for operations. So it includes funds such as the county collector, the circuit clerk, the county clerk, the sheriff commissary. All of those dollars are being held and managed by the county, but they're being held on behalf of others. Once the final report is issued, the remaining report will include footnotes, budgetary comparisons for all the funds, combining statements, statistical information. There's a wealth of information in there. This year there was one new accounting standard implemented related to subscription-based information technology arrangements, and sometimes that's shortened to SBITAs. That did not have a significant impact on the financial statements for fiscal year 23, but it will in the future. The courthouse technology software that's being implemented and put into service right now, hopefully by the end of this fiscal year, will qualify as a subscription-based IT arrangement, and that's going to be to the tune of a few $1 million. So you'll be seeing that showing up on the financial statements, actually in the assets section. So that's to come. As I mentioned earlier, we're still finalizing that single audit report. And then there's also a compliance audit required for the circuit clerk's office. That report refers back to the final county audit. So that report will be finalized as soon as the county report is issued. But as far as I know, there won't be any findings noted on that circuit clerk audit either. That's really all I have. I didn't want to go through every number or every page, but if you are looking through and you have questions, or if you have questions now, let me know. Otherwise, I just want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to do the audit, and I want to especially thank the finance department for all of their time and efforts. And then there are a lot of other departments that also gave us their time and assistance, so we greatly appreciate that. So,
any questions from the committee? Mr. Hunter.
Carmen, could you amplify on the management letter on page 13 under the highway department? Is that evolved into a better situation or what?
Generally, that's just referring to the year-end close process. So when we came in and started looking at the numbers, there were a few adjustments that didn't get posted from last year's audit. And then a few things that typically we would see the county or the highway department posting that didn't get posted. So we're just recommending a more formal close procedure at the end of the year, kind of like a checklist or a checks and balances to make sure that all of the things that need to be addressed at the end of the year are addressed.
Okay,
So.
thank you. Another question, maybe to you and Steve. What's the name of that award which you guys, the county receives every year on accounting or whatever
It's
that?
the Certificate of Excellence that's issued by the Government Finance Officers Association, so it's the GFOA. So the county prepares the report. All of the different sections, all 190 pages, are required in that report. They submit it. They submit it to GFOA, and then it gets reviewed over the course of the next year. And if they think it's good enough, then they get the Certificate of Excellence.
How many years in succession have we received that?
7 or 8 at this point. And this report will also be submitted as well
Thank you.
once it's complete.
Excellent.
Wait, the deadline is Friday, so we're
Any other comments, questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I too would like to thank SKDO for all their work, and also all the departments that help us with the stat reports and other information. And County Clerk Dan has the most, if you will, of information that he assists us with. And I know when we start bugging him, it's not always the most opportune time for them, but he works it in. We appreciate that. I also want to thank within the department, Chris, Lisa, and Jack for all their work. It's a busy time behind the scenes trying to get all this done, so I appreciate that while we're on the subject, and all the departments and their staff for their assistance as well. And with that, we can move into our regular stuff, right?
In your packets, you have the miscellaneous financial reports. If you want to go through those, I have one question, Steve. So you have 2 cannabis sales tax. There's one that's averaging $21,000 a month, and then you have a second one that I didn't catch it last month. And then you have another one that averages $3,800 a month. What's the difference between those two?
Yeah, the one is sales tax and the other one's use tax.
Okay.
So use tax is more of the statewide redistribution, similar to our use, the other use tax that we get. And then sales tax, we're just now starting to see, the activity within the villages, the cities and villages within the county. So
Okay, thank you.
It's starting to ramp up, as we see it flow. So, in general,
Mr. Featherly.
Steve, I got a question for you. I heard that the governor's talking about eliminating the 1% on the sales tax for food. I heard that yesterday, that he was considering it still.
Yeah, that's been
For signature? He just signs it in the middle of the night, so nobody really knows when he does it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There was also, I read, where they might plug in where to allow villages and cities to implement their own, potentially to bring it back. I don't know if that was included or not, but that was also part of the discussion.
Wonder what the savings is if you just pass it from one pot to the other and it's coming out of the same pocket all the time.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
I'll let you know once
It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot.
I'm sure over time it's going to add up. Yeah.
Do we have to compensate for it somewhere else then? Try to keep the numbers
I'll
going.
keep an eye on it, and let you know as, those numbers become available. One, it's just been a discussion now. If it actually becomes reality, we'll have to, lock in on it. So,
Thank you.
yeah. And I think in general, other than income tax, we probably are seeing a slight slowdown economically. We'll see trend-wise and stuff, I know we've been talking about it. We budgeted conservatively, So we'll keep an eye on, the trends of these, I mean, it's nothing, nothing really is alarming at this point. But you can kind of see a little bit of slowdown, potentially. So, it hasn't, in my opinion, turned into a trend yet, but, we'll keep an eye on it.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? Seeing none, cash flow update.
Won't spend a lot of time on this. We do have, it's a 3 payroll month for May. Working into the first distribution, whenever that happens, at sometime usually in July, no issues, so, which is good news. But happy to answer any questions if there are any on that report.
All right, next up, claims.
All right, got a lot of claims for you. You want me to read?
Mr. Donald?
Move that we combine and approve.
Motion to combine and approve the claims, second by Mr. Hunter. Can you read them into the record?
Okay. I know 2 showed up late yesterday that Kelly worked in, so I apologize if I get out of order, but I'll try to get them all read in. So Extreme Promotional Products, $225. Purvis, Condon, and Bersani PC, $1,462.50. The Country Table, NAACP meeting, $429.50. Alfonso Cephas, State's Attorney activity, $600. Barnita Barnes, also State's Attorney, $600. Charlotte McKenzie, State's Attorney, $600. James K. Smith, also State's Attorney related, $600. Suzette Jacob, so State's Attorney, $600. Rebecca Logan, this is transportation and mileage reimbursement, $306. Cash, petty cash reimbursement for $152, State's Attorney. Caps tees, $125, State's Attorney. Carrie Stewart, for reimbursement for $45.65, State's Attorney activity. Drainage District, Brower and Son, so Drainage District request to reimburse them $1,053.25. For 911, G&L Trophies.
Mr. Hess.
Somebody stop. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. Steve, on that one, am I reading that right? That it says 1053, but then on the other one it says 1,019.53.
Yeah, yeah, that got confused. So the question it looked like was for sales tax. So Browers and Sons paid for this on behalf of Manteno Bourbonnais Union number 6 Drainage District. So their request was to reimburse them back. So it'll have to go with the sales tax in this case, which is $1,053.25. Sorry for all the markups on that.
Any follow-up, Mr. Hess?
No, that's
Okay.
fine. Just
All right. G&L Trophies, this is for 911, $14.25. Best One Tire and Service for planning, $1,451.96. And then the other 2 that came in late, Shanice Levesque, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. This is State's Attorney, $1,100. And Jennifer Bessler, I believe this is a reimbursement, $31.59.
Any comments or questions on the claims that were presented? If not, roll call.
Mr. Eka?
Aye.
Mr. Dennell?
Aye.
Mr. Hess? Ms. Polk?
Aye.
Ms. Weber? Ms. Parker? Mr. Featherling? Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter? Ms. Erbs? Mr. Wheeler? Motion carries.
Motion carries. Next up is monthly claims. Can I have a motion to approve the monthly claims? Motion by Mr. Long, second by Mr. Dunnell. Any questions on the claims? If not, roll call.
Mr. Eckoff?
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell? Mr. Hess? Ms. Polk?
Aye.
Ms. Weber? Ms. Parker? Mr. Featherling? Mr. Long? Mr. Hunter? Ms. Armours? Mr. Wheeler? Motion carries.
Motion carries. Next up, interfund borrowing notice, VAC.
So I put it under mine to make sure that we clarified everything that the Finance Committee needed so we could create a resolution with the State's Attorney's Office. As Karen alluded to yesterday, their funds are, the cash is running short in anticipation of a higher property tax distribution coming sometime in July. I did provide a report for explanation. There's a normal trial balance report right after the claims and the monthly claims report. The third line reads 10132 First Trust Special Funds. So to explain interfund borrowing, there's two ways we can do it. One would be that it would happen within this bank account. So all of these funds are within the same bank account. So all this cash is sitting in one spot, this account at First Trust. So when they do dip below, it would come from this cash flow. If the committee's uncomfortable with that, we could move funds from the general fund to this account, so we'd have to write a check through the Kankakee County Treasurer, move from bank to bank to supply this bank account with additional funds, and then transfer it back once the distribution happens. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that, and find out what the committee's comfort zone is, and you know, and then we'll proceed with the resolution, assuming that you want to do interfund borrowing to, you know, cover their payroll and other expenses until the distribution happens. So.
Chairman Wheeler.
Is the treasurer just
Microphone, please.
sorry, just staggering. I'm just going to say it. They knew for 2 months they weren't going to have money. They went out and bought a van. They went to a conference. They spent all this money knowing that they weren't going to have money to pay for their services or their employees. So disingenuous doesn't rise to what I feel is going on here. How about we just ask the treasurer to give them an early distribution and we'd be done with this? That was what Nick just whispered in my ear. He's got the money. He can give them the early distribution off of the tax. And we don't have, does that solve your problem, Steve?
Yeah, we're just doing this anticipation of it dipping below, you know, their fund cash dipping below
50,000.
I had 62,000 written down from general fund if we actually did a transfer, you know, check to check for assuming 2 months. You know, that's what I was estimating. Their average right now is 31,000 a month, and at June, July, you know, not putting pressure on Nick, but if they had to go to the end of July before distribution, I estimated $62,000.
No problem, Treasurer. Okay.
It's cleaner.
Yeah.
Burn checks flying around. Does it require an agreement?
Oh. Mr. Long.
At that point, does it require the intergovernmental agreement?
Treasurer Africano.
Yeah, it doesn't require that, and then I'll just pull it back in the distribution on
For their first distribution,
yeah,
you'd pull it
July.
back.
Yep.
As long as they know that.
Yep.
And they can budget for that in the future.
Yep.
Mr. Alexander Hildebrand.
So I just want to point out, after yesterday's meeting, I did a little bit of research, and she was asked about the expansion of the VAC and said she wouldn't be able to do that without grant funding or additional help. She was then asked later on if she explored any grant opportunities, and she said she needed a grant writer in order to do that. Then why would we go out and consult with an architect about expanding? Because to me, this gives quite the opposite impression. of what she said yesterday about having no plans to do that. According to the record, she spent $14,000 on design and phase, and then went out to bid with 4 different people bidding on the project for $184,000.
May I respond?
Yeah.
So, in order to get a grant or look for grants, you have to know how much. So we had to have an idea of how much that would cost us, and that's why we did that.
Along, and can I go second?
Anybody else first time? Okay, second time.
And then along with that, when you spend, even if you did get a grant and you spent that money on the building, you spend $200,000 on a lease place. When the lease is ended in 2027, I guarantee you, you just rise the value of the place you are currently in. And I mean, it just makes common sense for the rent to rise with that as well.
Okay. Mr. Hunter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Karen, I know you indicated that your board was going to be meeting last night. In light of all of the discussions and the comments that were directed towards you and your responses, anything to report that the action that your board took last night at your meeting?
We're moving forward with what we need to do to see how we sell a state grant bus, but other than that, no.
Okay. No comments regarding the fiscal situation at all, other than the interfund borrowing?
No, they were made aware of that last month. Our meeting called the same day the executive board meets, so last month at our meeting at night, we discussed the fact that we were going to have to do that interfund borrowing.
Let me pose another question to you. Had you ever interfaced or contacted Ben regarding grants that may be out there, or you said, I think you said that you guys don't have the internal expertise to pursue grants?
And I didn't hear who you said, who have we contacted?
Mr. Wilson.
Ben Wilson.
Oh, well, he of course was there when we got our bus grant, but not like outside of that, no. I didn't know he did any other grant writing.
Excuse me, I want to hear that again. You were not aware of the fact that Ben does grant writing?
Outside of the rural transportation stuff, I didn't know that he had anything to do with grant writing.
Wow. I knew that.
Chairman Wheeler.
He doesn't have anything to do with grant writing for the VAC, which is a separate organization from the county. They have their own board, they have money to go out and pay someone to write grants. Okay, it's not, I was told that I needed to go find grants for them, okay, by Karen at one point. So that's not my job, that's her job. That's what they hire a director to do, is the thing she's trying to tell everybody else to do. So I'm not gonna sit here and act like this hasn't been going on for a year or two. It has. And we're now to the point where we're being blamed for financial irresponsibility by, it seems like, her board and her. And I'm not gonna take that. We have increased their funding every year, and we're increasing it next year by the state mandated, what, $500,000 increase, roughly, 400 something? And it's gonna be a whole new line on everybody's tax bill that they get to look at. It's gonna say veterans assistance on the tax bill. So they can be appreciative of the fact that the citizens here are contributing towards that, but not to buy buses you don't need, or not to go on trips you can't afford, or not to do expansions that you don't have the money to do, and then to blame the county board for your own irresponsibility. I'm done.
Anybody else first time? Mr. Alexander Hildebrand.
And then I have one more thing to add. I also did a little more research on this, and I found that the question we asked yesterday about the salary and raise question, you were asked regarding your office, and you mentioned you didn't get a raise. And I guess after thinking about it, I didn't ask the right question. Did you get a raise or a bonus? Because on December 15th, 2023, you gave yourself a $4,500 bonus, and you make $103,000 a year. And over the past 5 years, your salary has increased 50%.
I make $80,000 a year. That's a set thing. It's been that way since December of 2022. And yes, we did do bonuses last year for the employees.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? So do we need a motion to allow the treasurer to do that, or can the treasurer do it on his own?
Say what?
Do you need a motion to allow you to?
I do not.
Okay. All right. So you and Karen will work it out with that board.
I'll take care of it.
Okay. This is off the. Okay. All right. Moving on.
All right. The next. The Department of Treasury ARPA update. Chris and I have been doing all the training we can. The Department of Treasury is clarifying the year-end, well, not year-end, but their very specific transition of 12/31/2024 and clarifying what an obligation means. And for the first time, we learned what an obligation will not be, and very, very detailed. So I wanted to share that. I also took the document that we looked at last month as far as the outstanding, the ongoing, I should say, ARPA projects, that the current ones, and wrote down whether or not it was a resolution or a contract connected to it, because according to the Department of Treasury, a resolution to them is not an obligation. So our resolutions, adoption budgets and those types of things are, law as far as we're concerned, but to the Treasury, it's not. So they're pretty much narrowing it down to contracts, and it has to be in place before we cross over 12/31/2024 for anything remaining that will be spent in 2025 and 2026. So it's an update. Be happy to answer any questions. Obviously, that with a lot of the smaller $20,000 just agreements that we have with the drainage districts and small governments, the non-covered governments, we're going to have to work a little bit harder with them to get this buttoned up by the end of the year. And then I also have a few question marks by some of the projects. Check with Wes and others. There may be contracts. I just may not have those, and we may just need to do a little work to connect the dots on that, or make sure we have contracts if it's going to go past 12/31/2024. So just FYI at this point, and for anything that we are working on and to discuss in the near future as far as the remaining dollar amounts for ARPA and what it'll be spent on, those also have to be under contract form by the time we get to the end of the year. So just wanted to clarify and answer any questions as far as what we just learned. So.
Ms. Weber.
Thank you for that report, but I don't think that's a difficulty. It's just something that's good to know so it can be done.
Yeah, just another step potentially, that we'll need to do for some of these that are already in place.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you very much for that information, Steve.
Right. And then do we have one more. I think Chairman.
Oh, Chairman Wheeler, sorry.
Thank you. It's if we could, can we move an old business item up while Steve is up there?
Yeah.
It's to discuss a allocation for KCCSI. Vincent Clark is on today. I was on the phone yesterday regarding a change that they want to make, and the timeliness of it made it so we had to come here and kind of get the head nod, even though we've already awarded it, and it's just a shift in that. In order for us to change the resolution, the expense would happen this next coming weekend. So I just want to make sure you understand why we're here, because it has to do with a children's event. As far as our youth supports, things that we've identified, the purpose is still the same. It's just the actual use of the money. So with that, I guess Mr. Clark and Mr. Hunter might have information they could, or will have information to share.
Yeah, thank you very much,
Mr.
Chairman.
Hunter.
Yeah, just to mention a couple other things with respect to extending the time period for the grant as well too. That was one additional aspect of the KCCSI grant. I think the grant initially, Reverend, make sure I'm speaking correctly, was 2 years, and I think you wanted to extend it out to 36 months.
That's correct, sir.
And what we're looking at actually is the specificities as the Victor Woods books, and we want to amend the particular allocation of the budget to address the needs for an event this weekend that may impact anywhere from 150 to 200 youth in the county. We had a conversation yesterday, as Chairman Wheeler indicated, and we'd like to get support in that regard. Any other comments that you'd like to make, Reverend?
Yes, again, we want to keep the focus mainly on anti-violence and working with our youth. We have spent approximately $7,200 purchasing books and food for youth programming under anti-violence, but we would like to be able to have the flexibility to not only purchase books in other areas, but to have partnership where we have our youth doing some community service work in collaboration with KCCSI. One example that I did talk to a gentleman about on yesterday was like the regatta. We already had talked to the Zetas in reference to having their participants in their career academy do some community service work as well. So we would like that flexibility built into the grant for programming to not just purchase books, but to be flexible to do some things that have an impact on Kankakee County itself.
So is there action required in terms of, the head nod that the chairman spoke to?
Chairman Wheeler.
Well, the thought was, is if the committee agrees, if the members of that subcommittee agree that this still is within the target, of what we wanted to allocate money towards, we can do the resolution at the full board, but it allows them to run to daylight for this weekend's event. And then, as the Reverend mentioned, flesh out for a upcoming committee meeting what the specific rest of that will be. It's not all going to this weekend's event. So the amount of money left, Steve, within just this part was how much? We talked yesterday, I can't remember. For just the books part of it?
I pulled the original contract, but he just mentioned 7,500. I'm gonna have to do the math, but if we could get a specific breakdown, if that's possible, of what the changes will be and where it'll be going for audit purposes, to be able to flow it, we can connect it to an amending resolution so that it all adds up and all connect all the dots to from what the original application to what the new amendment will be, going forward.
Yes, and for this weekend, my understanding is we're looking at about $1,200 to purchase food for the youth participants that's happening this weekend.
Yeah, that's right. I was 1,100 and something, right at 1,200. Yeah, you're correct, Reverend.
So if we anticipate that being a positive change, we could say that here, vote on the change of the resolution to kind of open it up a little bit, and this will be the first submitted reimbursement claim, I believe. And is that acceptable on reimbursement for this weekend, or because we can't go running through hoops to cut. It would be difficult to get
Reverend,
a check
I
out.
think you're talking about reallocating money you already have, right?
Correct.
We've already paid you for this.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We've
I
already
missed that.
paid
I'm
him.
sorry. I thought
He's
there was
now,
still
he's asking
some.
permission
Yeah.
to reallocate what the original application was to the actual, for new application.
Because they were all different. Each one was
Yep.
different. I was
Yeah.
assuming that. Yeah, we're if you guys are good with it, then that's what we're here for.
So just a head nod.
Yeah, and then we'll have the resolution be reflective at the full board.
Ms. Weber.
I just wanted to confirm what was the original grant to the association.
Well, there was two parts on this section, I identified as books volume 1 and books volume 2. Both were $18,750, and then there was food for a workshop for $900. So this section we funded $38,400. So he mentioned that they've used some of it, that reallocate. So that's where we have to get a breakdown of that section and how it'll be reallocated, so that we have an audit trail.
Of 38 for how much have you written a check for?
No, we paid them all.
You
the
paid out 38
$38,000.
for,
We paid them
so
up front.
there is no question of money here, it's reallocation.
No, the only question is us going back and evaluating how the money was used.
Thank you.
According to the contract, to what. So we got an amendment going on, so we need to have that written so that we have all that in place. That there was an addendum to the original contract.
I also heard that an amendment to the time, is that viable, that
Yeah, that won't be a problem. We'll work on we can extend it.
it's within the period of time?
Yeah, and this is already under contract, so
Oh.
we can update the terms.
Sure, okay,
Yeah.
thank you for that information.
Mr. Hunter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Steve and Chairman Wheeler. Reverend, anything else that you require?
No, I believe that's it. We just want to make sure we're able to help out these children with the program that's happening this weekend.
Okay. Thanks a lot, everybody. Appreciate it. And this we were notified at the 11th hour regarding some issues, and with the collaboration of Tyler Tall, Economic Development Director of NAACP, as well as Reverend Vincent Clark, who's the Executive Director of KCCSI, Chairman Wheeler, of course, Steve McCarty, and yours truly. I really appreciate the prompt action, the proactive action that was taken to benefit these youth in this particular initiative this coming weekend.
Thank you. Anything else, Steve?
Nope, that's all I had.
And thank you for all your hard work with the audit as well. You need to be highlighted too, so thank you, Steve.
Have a good one.
You too. Next up is the Treasurer's Office. Can I have a motion to combine and approve the Treasurer's Report? Motion by Mr. Long, second by Mr. Fedling. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for helping us out with not having to interfund borrow, Mr. Treasurer.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Good morning, everybody.
That's a positive of actually having money, I guess, right?
Yep, it sure is. Steve, I think you had called me about this as well, what you just discussed, and I will be contributing as well. So, I didn't plan on saying this, but I will. I had a friend who is a homeless veteran who lost his leg because he slept outside in the cold over the winter, and I find it disgusting that members of the VAC would take a bonus. I, as the treasurer of this county, that's one of the most disgusting things I've heard since I started in this job. There's no role for bonuses in government. It's just disgusting, and they should be ashamed of themselves. I will help out, but this will be the only time I help out. And I'm helping out because they're veterans, not because of the employees.
I'd like to echo your words on that.
So,
and good eye there, Mr. Alexander Hildebrand.
And it's, I'm not interested in piling on. I just find it, I find it unbelievable that we would, first of all, that a government would take a bonus, and secondly, you would take a bonus and run out of money. I mean, it's the most, well, irresponsible doesn't begin to even get there. And their board should be ashamed of themselves for going along with it. And the veterans of this community should be pissed. Sorry for the language, but that's ridiculous. I mean, people are sleeping outside under bridges, and we're taking a bonus because we do such a great job. Give me a break. So that's my soapbox. I have some very good news, actually. I'm meeting here in the next 10 minutes with the president of Midland Bank. It's coming up from Effingham to meet with us. We have moved our tax collection account to them. So that change has been made. And I guess apology was in order for First American Bank. When they presented to us, the presentation was such that, or maybe it was my fault, but no one in the meeting caught it. They came to us with actually incredible proposal. So instead of having to move the special funds, we won't have to move that at all. That will be converted as of, well, today I'll sign the papers. That will be converted to a sweep account. We'll keep $300,000 in that account, and everything will sweep nightly at a rate of 5%. So they did. Midland was 4.95. First American came back with 5. We anticipate, if everything would go the same as it did this year, about $80,000 a month in interest, as opposed to 0.3% interest, or $6,000 last year, $8,000 last year. We could be up near $1 million in interest, which is the county's money, which is awesome. Obviously, it has to be prorated amongst the funds that are in the account, but most of those funds are direct. I'm going to also contact Tammy Peterson, John Beavis, Greg Hayden, about having some sweep accounts set up for them too, because the sweep accounts they're absolutely liquid. They sweep as needed on a daily basis. You can write as many checks as you want, and at 5%, it's a hell of a deal for us. So we're going to take advantage of that. So that's really exciting news for us. On tax bills, some people in this room probably have received them, and some people probably haven't. And it's an interesting situation with the, as most of you know now, with the mail system, that things don't, used to be in Kankakee, everything was a day, right? You could get everything in a day. Well, as most of you may know, our mail all goes to Champaign and then comes back, which is kind of interesting. And so it's sort of floating out there. So we deposited most of the bills on Monday, and then the rest on Wednesday of last week at the post office. But still, some are trickling out. We saved about $3,000 in postage from DevNet by changing the way we mailed, which may have made it go a little slower. But you know what? Save some money is a good thing. So people are starting to pay. Prepayments are, of course, growing like they have every year since we started prepayments. What else do I have to say? June 27th will be the end of the first due date for the first installment, and I suspect that we will take all 30 days to distribute that money, being that the rates are where they're at right now. We'll keep that, and that money will sweep at Midland, and I suspect we'll get about 115 million. We don't keep it for long, but it's better than a sharp stick in the eye. Anything else?
No.
I think that's all I have.
Can we take any more good news?
Well, I mean, yeah, we're a note to the VAC: the interest we make, you can't use as bonuses. FYI. By the way, I thought it was illegal for governments to pay bonuses, but that's just me. Maybe it's not.
Well, thank you very much for instigating the conversation with Midland and with First American to get those interest rates up. So kudos to you and your office.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments for the treasurer before he hightails out of here? All right. Next up is bus purchase, State's Attorney's Office, and others. Can I have a motion to approve? Motion by Mr. Hunter, second by Ms. Parker. Discussion or questions? If not, roll call.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Dennell?
He's out here.
Thank you. Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Ms. Polk?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Ms. Parker? Mr. Featherling?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter? Ms. Armour Earps?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler? Motion carries.
Motion carries. Any new or old business before the committee?
I'll be in touch with you.
If not, I just want to say I want to echo Treasurer Africano's comments regarding the VAC. Yesterday at Executive, we had a very spirited discussion on that, and I think oversight is definitely needed out there going forward. So, Mr. Long.
We're deficit spending next year's income. What are we gonna do about making up that difference? We're loaning them $62,000.
They'll be on
them 60.
They'll be on that board. They'll have to figure that out financially, and if they can't figure it out, that there's a
change, they're gonna be back.
There's a strong possibility of that. So be leery of that next year. Any other comments? Motion to adjourn by Mr. Hess, second by Mr. Featherling. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.